Blazing deals, boundless options. It's Hot Grill Summer at Whole Foods Market from June 14th through July 4th. Fire up the grill with quality cuts at the best prices. We're talking animal welfare certified meat. Check out the sales on bone-in ribeye, beef kebabs, and New York strip steak. Round out your barbecue with plant-based proteins, sliced cheese, soft buns, and all the condiments. Plus, sales on fresh strawberries, peaches, and more. Don't forget the pie either. Get grilling at Whole Foods Market. Terms apply.
The new 2023 Ford Escape is the perfect getaway car. Featuring an available 13.1-inch center stack screen, 360-degree camera, and Bang & Olufsen sound system and spatial flexibility for extra legroom. The new 2023 Ford Escape. Learn more at Ford.com. Some models, trims, and features may not be available or may be subject to change.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to Peak Northwest, an outdoors and travel podcast by the Oregonian and Oregon Live, dedicated to the adventure and exploration of our beautiful Pacific Northwest. I'm Jamie Hale.
And I'm Vickie Connor. Together, we take you to some of the most beautiful and interesting destinations in our region, discussing where to go, what to do, and places to see. And today we are talking about a sanctuary where you can unplug and find almost complete relaxation outside with the help of some healing waters. And I'm talking about none other than Breitenbush Hot Springs.
That's right, Vickie. Breitenbush is a place that you and I have each visited separately, and we both agree it is an absolute oasis, conveniently located just about 2 hours from Portland.
Whenever we come together for a podcast, or I should say recently, after we had both visited, we already talked about this at length. So I'm very excited to finally have an episode dedicated to Breitenbush.
Vickie, remind me, so you've been once, right?
Yes, I went once toward the end of April. I was really excited to go at a time where it hadn't yet gotten really hot outside, but it wasn't freezing. There was no snow on the ground. And I went with Nicole Hayden, our homelessness reporter here at the Oregonian.
Amazing. And you did a day trip, right?
Yes, we just went for the day. So left Portland, honestly, not even that early. I think we left Portland a little bit before noon and got there right in time around lunch hour, and kind of stayed up until last call for day passers, which is around 6 p.m. When was your first time visiting, Jamie?
My first time was also this year. It was in February when my partner Sadie and I and a friend of ours went there for just, again, a day trip, right? Just like you said. But it was a little bit colder. There was snow on the ground still a little bit. But then I went for the second time just recently, at the end of May for an overnight trip for work to do a story on Breitenbush. So Sadie and I went back and spent 2 nights at Breitenbush. And I found that to be, the day trip is an incredible experience. Doing it overnight is something I'd wanted to do since that first time. And I feel like 2 nights at least is definitely the way to go if you want to do something more than just a day. Just so nice to immerse yourself in the experience of Breitenbush.
I think before we jump too into this, for those who don't know about Breitenbush, maybe we should take a few steps back and kind of explain what exactly this place is. Yeah. So give kind of an overview statement, Jamie, how you would describe this to someone who's unfamiliar.
Well, it is a mountain hot springs resort. So these are natural mineral hot springs in the Cascade Mountains, just north of Detroit Lake. And, but it's not like, Terwilliger Hot Springs where you go and you hike in and, you're there with whoever. You have to pay to be there. There are rules. There's, that's not like a strict place, but they have a bunch of lodging opportunities to stay overnight. There is a place where your meals are taken care of. So you get, they're vegetarian meals that are provided breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no cell service. You are off the grid, soaking in hot springs in beautiful scenery for however long you want to stay there, basically.
Yeah, that's a great overview statement about Breitenbush. Yeah, so this is a place where, again, you have the option. You can either purchase a day pass, or you can stay overnight, and there are many lodging options. So for me, I went with my friend Nicole. It was $35 for each of us, and then we added on lunch. And this is a place where, basically we parked our car, we got there, you walk to a welcome center, they give you a map because it tells you where exactly the different hot springs are located on this, quote unquote campus of a hot spring. And then also where that is in relation to the lodge where food is served and where they have kind of a common area. So I was just surprised about the different offerings that they have available, because not only is it a place where you go and soak, but it's also a place that's known as a retreat center. There are massages offered there. There's just a lot going on, and I was really surprised by this.
Yeah, I mean, you can really luxuriate to the degree that you want. They had live music when I was there. They have like morning meditation sessions. They have tours of the place, all kinds of stuff. It is, as retreats go, as resorts go, a bit maybe crunchy is the word people may use. We should also mention, before we get too far into this, that is a place in the soaking pools, at least, that are clothing optional. So if you're not into that at all, don't worry about it. You can stop listening to this if you want and go somewhere else. But it's a place, not everyone is nude in the soaking pools. Plenty of people wear bathing suits, and it's totally fine. But that is an element of that there. It was, it's been a resort like this for 100 years or so. And since the late 70s, it has been in its current iteration as Breitenbush Hot Springs, which is sort of, this off the grid. The people who work there are like living in a communal setting. Everything's self-sufficient. They have their own hydroelectric dam. They have their own, sewage system. They make their own food. They've got they do everything themselves. They have their own fire department. And so they're completely self-contained, self-sufficient resort up in the mountains, which I think is really, really cool. So while they're soaking, relaxing, napping, there are also people working heavy machinery, clearing out logs and like building decks and like, putting stuff together and managing the hydroelectric grid. It's crazy. It is like off the grid to the next level. So if you're into that kind of thing, very cool just to look around, get a tour, and find out like how they do this stuff.
Absolutely. And if you visit their website and just the sense you get from being there, sustainability obviously is a huge part. As Jamie mentioned, there's a hydroelectric plant that is powered by the Breitenbush River. This supports 85 of their full-time residents and up to 250 guests, which is crazy. And then stewardship and community are also big cornerstones of Breitenbush. You'll see that on their website, they'll host different service weeks where you can come and help out on the grounds there, which is really awesome. And that's just the sense that I got from being there as well, from all of the workers there and everyone we were greeted by. Awesome sense of community at Breitenbush.
Absolutely. And it seems to have been strengthened by the recent wildfire that swept through Breitenbush. Back in 2020, obviously bad year for wildfires in Oregon. We had the Lion's Head fire, which combined with the Beachy Creek fire and did all kinds of damage in that area. Destroyed the Opal Creek wilderness. Obviously people lost lives, lost homes, lost everything. And at Breitenbush Hot Springs, they lost most of their buildings. The lodge stuck around, a couple of other buildings, but like they had, I want to say 75 cabins burned to the ground. They lost all those. So in the last few years, Breitenbush has been in this process of rebuilding. When you go there now, you'll see a lot of imagery of phoenixes on their t-shirts. There's, some art around of this idea of rising from the ashes. That is kind of what they're trying to do there. So a lot of their lodging now is brand new, which is strange because you're in this resort where people, I mean, people have been there for thousands of years. It's been in there in this iteration for, 50 years almost. But when you're staying in this lodging, it's like, it was built like a year ago. Brand new bathhouse. It's kind of a strange thing to reconcile, but it's very cool to be able to stay in this brand new stuff that they've just built for this.
It's kind of crazy. So when Nicole and I were soaking in our first tub when we were there, we were joined by another woman who seemed like she had been coming to Breitenbush for years on end. Not just seemed, she told us she'd been coming to Breitenbush for many years. And with our discussion about it, it was kind of like, oftentimes now in present day, we talk about the before and after times in relation to COVID, but she was actually talking about like the before and after times of the fire and how it's affected Breitenbush. So she was telling me about how it used to be and now finally coming back and how much she had missed it, and things she's looking forward to. So it was interesting to hear that perspective from someone who is a long timer for Breitenbush.
Yeah, I've heard them talk about it pre-fire, post-fire. Mm-hmm. There's very few employees left who were there from before the fire. A lot of folks moved on. But I talked to one of the founders about this, and I said, with so much that you've lost, was there ever a point when, you all were tempted to be like, well, let's just call it quits. Let's move on. And he was like, no, absolutely not. This is what we do. And it was just a new challenge to overcome. So they're not trying to like stuff this history away. Like you said, Vickie, people talk about before fire, after fire, but the fire being such an important moment in Breitenbush, like they have photos on the walls of the place going up in flames.
Yeah.
They have a big picture of the firefighters, the 5 firefighters from their fire department who stayed behind to save what they could. And they revere those guys now. They're heroes. And that's, it's interesting that they've really sort of embraced that, and they displayed that history, in the open. So while you're soaking, having this relaxing time, you also get to see pictures of the place going up in flames, this horrible, traumatic event. They're not trying to say, oh, we don't want to talk about it. They're really just saying, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how we're moving on and growing from that. And I think that's really cool and kind of inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw a lot of those photos up in their kind of like communal area with the one room that has like a piano in it too.
They did tell me they are looking to build more community space. That is sort of like their one indoor community space they have there. And they used to have a lot more, obviously, that is not there anymore. So there's like, when you are there, between the Welcome Center that you mentioned, Vickie, and the lodge, there's this like big, enormous open dirt field that used to be a forest and is no longer. And that's where they've built some of their newest lodging, the Grove, which is like a series of like, sort of think about it, like these long, like 4-room buildings. I think they have 4 rooms each, and they've got these small, very simple rooms. You get a bed and a table, a little heater for their geothermal heat system, and that's it. That's all you get. And it's very nice. But they also have some yurts out there, and a bunch of open space. And they said, that's where you want to, maybe eventually, obviously we'd love to have plants out here again, right? There's like no greenery in that field. But they want to build more like another sanctuary, another place to do yoga that's not in the lodge, places for people to gather more. That's kind of seems what they're looking to do more of now. They've built all the lodging they want to do. Aside from the Grove, they have some platform tents. They have some fancier platform tents. They have this place called the Milky Way, which is an old refrigerator truck converted into some like even simpler, lower cost housing. You can take your tent out there and camp in a field. You can take your RV out there and camp. They have a few like fancy yurts, which are really nice. And there's a couple of rooms in the lodge itself, if you don't mind living a little bit, noisier of a situation. But a lot of places to stay out there right now. But they told me we're not building any more lodging. we're kind of done with that for right now. We're going to focus on like infrastructure and building more bathrooms and shower houses, and then getting some community space up. That's kind of like their next plan, but it's a lot of work and they still have a lot more to do.
So, Jamie, maybe we should get into the soaking areas themselves, and the actual hot springs. Did you have a favorite out of the different areas?
Oh man, gosh, they're different.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there's two different areas to soak. And Vickie, maybe you can explain what those two areas are like. I imagine you went to them both.
Yes, I did go to them both, and my favorite was the spiral tubs. And that was actually the first that we went to. We went on a Saturday, so it got pretty busy, and we found the spiral tubs, even with crowds, to be the most relaxing. And so with the spiral tubs, there are 4 different tubs there, and as you go clockwise, starting at 1, they get hotter and hotter as you go. So there's one where, like, initially sticking just my toes in, I was like, I'm going to boil in this water. So, you can do it any way you want, but maybe you start at the coolest one and work your way up. But what I really loved about this area was that you have those 4 tubs for the hot springs, but then there's also a cold plunge next to it. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I've increasingly gotten more and more into, is cold plunging. So I really enjoyed going from those really, really hot waters to going and just like seeing how long I can stay in the cold plunge. And it's like a great environment. Everyone's super friendly and everyone's like cheering you on as you go into this cold plunge. They're like, you can do it. You can do it. So that was my favorite part. And so the other area is called the meadow pools. And it's the same kind of deal where the different areas get increasingly more hot as you go farther out into the meadow. And I liked this a lot too. It felt where the spiral tubs, you're kind of like around in a concrete area. And the meadow pools, as the name implies, you feel like you're kind of more out in the meadow, in nature. And each one kind of is its own private area. And these tend to be a little bit bigger as well, so more people can come in. And there's like almost like a shallow area, and then it gets a little bit deeper. So those were awesome as well. I think the hottest of them was closed when I was there, so I didn't get to experience that one. But I have no bad things to say about the meadow tubs. They were awesome.
I think I like the meadow tubs the best, personally.
Really? Okay.
Kind of like you said, they kind of work their way, in heat. There's the near pool, the middle one, and the far one. The far one is also a silent pool, so no talking of any kind there. And it's the first 2 are kind of built up into the hillside a little bit, as the far one is exposed more, so you can kind of get a broader view of the landscape, just more open that way. So it's really quite nice. I think a big difference between them is the degree to which people socialize in them. The spiral pools, just being these sort of perfect little circles they are, naturally encourage more people to socialize. I always find myself getting into conversations more with people. You're sharing a tub, they only fit like 4, maybe 5 people in those little spiral tubs. Not a lot. And you're all kind of facing each other because it's this perfect circle. And so, I met lots of great people there, folks in Portland, folks from Bend, or folks from across the country. It was very, very nice to sort of chat with folks. But the meadow pools, so because they're a little more open, a little bit larger, you can kind of take your own space, and it is more natural to do so. So I found myself really drawn to the sort of the middle of the meadow pools. Yeah. Middle heat. We're kind of up there against the hillside. We were there at sunset one of the nights we were there. And it was just that perfect. The color was starting to fade, and I was just, it was pure blissfully silent. And I was just resting there looking out at the meadow there, and this little family of 4 black-tailed deer wandered out and they like were, eating, and there were 3 of us in the pool and we all just like exchanged like looks, like our jaws dropped and we were just like, oh, look at, and, it was so nice. No one took out their phone to take video of it. Everyone just sat there in the silence and just watched it together and experienced it. And I love that. Just such a cool experience. And that's the kind of thing I like about Breitenbush. The opportunity to have no ability for internet, for cell service. Even when I'm camping, like you get a stray signal here and you get a bunch of notifications and you go, oh great, now I can check Instagram or whatever. And I give into that all the time, but having no access at all, I loved it. I really loved it. I couldn't do the Wordle in the morning and that was fine. It was no big deal. And having people take care of all your food for you. You just, can soak until you hear the dinner bell ring and then you go eat dinner. It's something about taking away your decision making in a way that kind of sounds like a bad thing, but to not have to worry about anything, I guess, to have all your needs just met. There's not a menu to select from. They just give you food. And I feel like, Vickie, we should actually talk about the food, because that for me is one of my favorite things about Breitenbush. And one of the things that I think surprised me the most is how good the food really is.
The food is excellent. And I was glad that we arrived in time for lunch service when we got there, which is, I think, at 1 p.m. And we got there, it might have been like 5 minutes before that bell rang. And I was like, oh, we don't even have to wait in line. We are right here. So Breitenbush serves vegetarian meals. Really, really tasty vegetarian meals. I am not a vegetarian. I really enjoyed this food. And they also you can make it vegan options as well, because I don't know about dinner if it's served the same way, but lunch was served buffet style. And so my meal specifically was kind of like a taco bowl. You build and put whatever toppings you want on it. And they had a vegetarian or vegan chorizo that was your protein option. And wow, it was so good. They also had a flavored lemonade there. Really delicious, really filling. I went back for seconds. I was just really starving from the drive. But it was great. You just line up, grab your plate, buffet style, grab what you want, and then sit down. There are a ton of tables, and they just say, if you want to sit next to someone, you go up and say, hey, can I join you and eat with you? And if you want to make friends, you can. If you want your own peaceful lunch, you can have that option too.
Exactly. You never know what someone's there for. Some are there for community building. Some are there for personal healing. You don't want to interrupt anyone. Also, all the meals are prepared buffet style, like you said. And they're, I'd say like 9 out of 10 are excellent. So a lot of different styles, varieties. Obviously vegetarian food is not just salad. There's often a salad you can do. But like one of the things that we loved there the most, we got the dinner on our first night was khichdi with naan, and they had curried sweet potatoes and cauliflower. They had some chutney. They had homemade. There's this homemade sweet chutney, sweet spicy chutney. It's so good. They always have a lime ginger cooler. I think one of the mornings it was this really hearty oatmeal and fruit, and it was a lavender milk tea, and it was so good.
They don't mess around with these drinks. These non-alcoholic drinks are hitting the spot.
Yeah. And it felt so good. Like my body loved it. There's always a sweet treat at lunch. You get a cookie at lunch. That was the 2 days we were there anyway.
Yeah.
Lunch only. And it was great. I went back for seconds both times because I don't mess around when it comes to cookies.
No.
But everything was so good.
I think it's also worth noting, I know I just mentioned their non-alcoholic beverages, but this is also, in addition to being a digital detox, this is also a substance-free area and retreat center. So There's no alcohol there. No drugs are permitted on site either. So it is really a relaxation free of distractions at Breitenbush.
Yeah, leave your beer at home, leave your cannabis at home, and just enjoy the day, or the nights hanging out and taking a break from the world. That's the nice thing, right? Is you can just leave everything behind and just soak. There's something about soaking. I don't know if you experience this, Vickie, but like I remember being in the pools one of those nights and just like feeling like my body relax and feeling myself let go of things of like tension or stress or having these like emotional releases. It was just so nice. I don't know if it's just the hot water, if it's the intention of going there to get away from stuff, if it's the minerals in the water. I don't know exactly, but there's something about that process that just allows you to let go of things and breathe and relax and be taken care of. So even if you're going to natural hot springs in the Cascades, you still got to worry about camping, feeding yourself, cooking dinner, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And you can have all that taken care of. You don't have to worry about anything. And it's just a really special spot.
Yeah. Jamie, I think this episode could honestly turn into an hour of us talking about Breitenbush because we both love it so much. Is there anything else you want to add? Like, obviously they have a lot of events coming up. You can check that out on the website, but anything else that we missed that you want to talk about?
Well, like with everything we talk about here, going on weekdays, you're going to find less crowds.
Yeah.
Easier to book, stuff for the night. Easier to get day passes if you're on a weekday. If you have the ability to do it, make some space for folks in the weekend if you can. But obviously a good place to go just about any time of year. They are open basically around, as long as it's accessible, as long as the smoke's not too bad from fire season. They're open. So check them out. They're at this point still rebuilding, still hurting a little bit for finances to rebuild. That's a lot to do. So I know some folks are not aware that they are even reopened. I heard some staff members who said, oh yeah, like we hear from some old timers who used to come and they thought we were burned to the ground and that we're gone, but we're not. We're still here. So remember that. Come on out and check it out again. Don't be put off by the fire damage. Don't be put off by any of that. It's definitely still and newly a great place to stay. What about you, Vickie? Any final words from you?
I would say just check out the different events that they have coming up. There are a ton that have actually caught my eye, whether you're looking for a meditation retreat or I, as a yoga teacher, am interested in some of like kind of teacher trainings that they have going on. So yeah, check out that events calendar. Again, maybe you want to donate some of your time and work to bettering Breitenbush. That's also an option during their service weeks. But yeah, do you have any plans to go back anytime soon, Jamie, you think?
Sadie and I said we both have this thought separately, and we said it to each other later. We're like, we need to come here at least once a year.
Yeah.
For like the rest of our lives. I don't know. But that's the plan. We're like, every year we got to make it out here for at least the day. So, maybe not this year. I think we're pretty busy this year, but next year we'll definitely make it out there again.
I might follow suit on those planning thoughts there. I love that.
Perfect. Well, Vickie, looking forward to continuing to gush with you about Breitenbush on and off the podcast. But folks, until next time, you can watch our videos on the Oregonians YouTube channel and view all of our travel and outdoors coverage on OregonLive.com/travel, as well as HereIsOregon.com.
Please leave us a rating or review if you enjoy the show, and if you want to support this podcast as well as our local journalism, please consider a subscription to Oregon Live. You can find details at OregonLive.com/pod-support. Also, if you're a fan of the show and you are interested in potentially sponsoring it, you can get in touch with our marketing people at advertise@oregonian.com. This episode of the show was produced by me, Vickie Connor, alongside Jamie Hale.
Stay safe and happy travels, everyone. Until next time, we leave you with this 10 seconds of Zen.